Welcome back to the CryptoWorld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is once again bouncing from this critical area of support, which means the price is now forming a new pattern in the short term that we need to pay attention to, while Ethereum is also forming the same short-term pattern, while Solana is about to break this pattern. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in this video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just giving you a quick update on the Bitcoin ETF news today, because just yesterday we saw yet another net outflow, which is actually the 5th net outflow in a row. But the good news is the net outflows are actually getting smaller, because this time around on Friday we saw a net outflow of 51.6 million US dollars, which is actually not as bad as what we saw earlier in the week. But once again, ultimately, if we're seeing net outflows, that is technically bearish, and if we're seeing net inflows, that's technically bullish. And if we're looking at the breakdown, one of the main reasons why we saw this outflow was, of course, once again, the outflow due to Grayscale. Once again, Grayscale is always dumping their Bitcoin due to their very high fees. But another reason why we saw the net outflow is because of very weak inflows into other ETFs, mainly the BlackRock and Fidelity ETFs. Because the average day for BlackRock is an inflow of over $250 million US dollars in a single day. That's their average day, $250 million inflow, and the average day for Fidelity is nearly a $140 million inflow. That's their average day. But instead, on Friday, we saw BlackRock with an inflow of just under $19 million, which is their worst day yet. And we saw an inflow into Fidelity of only around $18 million, which is also one of their worst days. And so when you combine the fact that we had relatively weak inflows into the other ETFs, meanwhile we had that usual outflow from Grayscale, once again that leaves us with a net outflow of over 51 million US dollars, which is actually not as bad as what we saw earlier in the week. And in case you're new to all of this, the Bitcoin ETFs trade on the stock market, so the stock market's actually closed over the weekend, which means we have no new inflows or outflows for the Bitcoin ETFs over the weekend. And with that being said, getting into the Bitcoin charts today, this is on the weekly time frame, and right now Bitcoin is still repeating history, but in this video I will not be repeating myself. So if you want to know more about this chart right here, check out my last video here on the channel, because in that video I went into much more detail about this chart right here and why Bitcoin is repeating history. And the same can be said about this chart right here, because once again, I covered this chart in more detail in my last video here on the channel. So watch that video if you want to know more about this chart. But basically right now, we're just seeing the standard pullback that we usually see during this bull market that's close to 20%. And if we're taking a look at the daily Bitcoin chart, looking at the DXY, also known as the US dollar index, and right now this is actually still spiking to the upside, which is technically a short-term bearish signal for Bitcoin. Because usually when the DXY is bullish, that is often bearish for Bitcoin and crypto. Not 100% of the time, but most of the time when the DXY is bullish, once again, that's usually bearish for Bitcoin and crypto. And so just keep that in mind right now. Once again, it's still spiking to the upside, so it's technically still a short-term warning signal for Bitcoin. But with that being said, looking at the 8-hour time frame, of course, we're still playing out this bearish divergence on the 8-hour chart. But of course, just a few days ago, we saw the 8-hour RSI get very close to oversold territories, telling us we had limited room to the downside, at least in the short term. But technically speaking, this bearish divergence has not yet been invalidated, so technically it is still active on the chart, and in order to invalidate this bearish divergence, we need to see some higher lows and higher highs actually confirm, ideally in the RSI and the price action here. And another invalidation signal to look out for this bearish divergence right here would be if the RSI actually breaks out back above this line of resistance right here. Because essentially, if we see a breakout to the upside, more of a reversal in the RSI, once again, that is a sign that this bearish divergence is no longer playing out. And if we're zooming further into the short term, we can see on the 4-hour time frame that just over the last one day, we saw pretty much a perfect bounce from this area of support, which is still sitting in between around 61 to 62,000. And so as you can see here, the price of Bitcoin over the last one day got extremely close to 62,000. And once again, that is where a lot of buyers are waiting to buy Bitcoin. But as of recording this video, the price of Bitcoin is actually running into a bit of short-term resistance, which was previous support, and this is sitting in between around 65,000 to 66,000. But if we see a confirmed breakout back above 66,000, then our next resistance is sitting at around 68,000 and basically goes all the way up towards $70,000. And that's the very important resistance to break out above, because if we start seeing a breakout above $70,000, then essentially it's very likely at that stage that we are in the recovery stage and we're no longer in the pullback stage of this pullback. And so basically, once we see a confirmed breakout back above $70,000, then it's extremely likely that we'll quickly see the all-time high once again. And while the price is chopping around here in the short term, we're actually forming a new pattern right now on the 2-hour Bitcoin chart, which is indeed an inverse head and shoulders pattern. And an inverse head and shoulders pattern is the opposite of a regular head and shoulders pattern, and a regular head and shoulders pattern is bearish, and an inverse head and shoulders pattern is technically bullish, but only if we confirm a breakout, which as of right now, this pattern is not yet confirmed. Because in order to confirm this pattern right here, we need to see a confirmed breakout above the neckline, which is sitting at around $67,000 and should be acting as resistance. And so once again, it is important to understand that while the price is still below 67,000, technically this pattern is not yet confirmed, so it is not yet in play, and we do not yet have any active bullish price target while the price is still sitting below 67,000. But if we see a confirmed breakout back above 67,000 with candle closes and ideally flipping that into new support again, and ideally if we can actually break out above this area of resistance as well to be more confident in that bullish scenario, then that would set up a short-term bullish price target for this inverse head and shoulders pattern, which if we're measuring out that move, that would set up a price target at nearly $74,000, basically the all-time high. And so once again, that just further reiterates that if we see a breakout above this resistance at 67,000 and ideally above $70,000, then it is extremely likely that the price will just quickly head up towards the all-time high as a technical price target. And so what this means for my trading strategy is if we see a confirmed breakout back above this resistance, then I'll be looking to enter a long position to trade that move to the upside. But once again, as of right now, I have not yet entered that trade because right now we have not yet confirmed any breakout. And if you want to trade these moves in the price of Bitcoin to maximize your profits in crypto, personally, I take trades just like that over on Bybit. So I'll make sure to leave a link to Bybit in the description down below and in the pinned comment. And also, if you make a Bybit account using that link down below this video and deposit on that account, you can get up to a $30,000 deposit bonus, but only if you use that link down below this video. But for whatever reason, if you cannot access Bybit or if you cannot KYC on Bybit, there is also Bitflex, which is another crypto exchange similar to Bybit, but you don't need KYC for Bitflex. And so I'll also make sure to leave a link to Bitflex in the description down below and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here where you can enter an exclusive Apple Watch giveaway. And so if you're trading crypto anyway, or if you're preparing to take the next trading opportunity, then you might as well get set up or ready to go on one of those exchanges using those links down below this video if you want to get those extra bonuses. And if we're taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, right now we've actually been hitting some levels of liquidity to the upside, which is something that I've talked about recently on the channel. But right now we still have more liquidity to the upside. We actually have an area of liquidity sitting in between around 66.9k to 67.2k. And we have a lot more liquidity to the upside sitting at around 68,500 to 69,000. And in case you're new to this channel, usually these areas of liquidity kind of act as magnets for the price of Bitcoin. Basically, Bitcoin usually moves towards where there's most liquidity. And if we're taking a look at the Ethereum chart on the weekly time frame, we're still around 1 day away from the next weekly candle close. And as of recording this video, the price of ETH is sitting right around that 3.4k level, which is a critical level for Ethereum to hold above. Because basically, if we confirm a weekly candle close well below 3.4k, then in that case, we might be breaking back below this important golden pocket, which was previous resistance. And in that case, we could actually see a drop all the way down to potentially 2.9k if we first confirm a break back below 3.4k, which as of right now has not yet happened on the weekly time frame. And so at least for now, this area of support at around 3.4k to 3.5k is still something to pay attention to. And as for resistance, we still have that level of resistance at around 4.1k, and of course more significant resistance closer towards the all-time high at around 4.8 to 4.9k. But obviously, despite what happens in the short term here, we're still technically within a larger bullish market similar to Bitcoin. And if we're zooming into the shorter term, looking at the 4-hour time frame, right now we're seeing basically a perfect bounce from this exact area of support, just after seeing basically a perfect rejection from that exact area of resistance. And in case you're wondering, this area of support is still sitting in between around 3.2k to 3250, and we saw a bounce pretty much bang on 3250. And if we're looking at this area of resistance, this is still sitting in between around 3470 to around 3540. And as for other resistance further to the upside, if we see a breakout above 3540, then we should also find some resistance at around 3650. And above that, we have more important resistance sitting in between around 3750 to 3.8k. But as of right now, similar to Bitcoin, while the price is basically chopping around sideways in the short term, we're seeing a new pattern form, which is an inverse head and shoulders pattern here on the 2-hour time frame. And so once again, this is the same pattern as I said for Bitcoin earlier in the video. It's technically a bullish pattern, but only if we confirm a breakout above this neckline, this line of resistance, which for Ethereum is sitting at around 3480 approximately. And so basically, if we see a confirmed breakout above 3480 and ideally breakout above this resistance, once again above 3540, then in that case, that would set up a short-term bullish price target for this inverse head and shoulders pattern, which will be sitting at around $4,000. And so just for example, measuring that move from the point of the breakout to that price target, that's roughly around a 15% move to the upside, or just for example, with a 10x leveraged long position, that 15% move could be a 150% profit. But once again, it is important to understand that right now we have not yet confirmed the breakout above this resistance, which means as of right now, this price target is not yet in play and this pattern is not yet active. But once again, if you want to trade these moves when they happen, make sure to get set up or ready to go on one of those exchanges using those links down below this video if you want to get those extra bonuses. And if we're taking a quick look at the price of Solana valued in Bitcoin, this is Sol BTC on the 2-hour time frame. And right now, after forming that potential head and shoulders pattern, we're actually seeing a descending triangle pattern, which is still more of a bearish pattern, especially if it breaks to the downside, and would still give us the same price target as a head and shoulders pattern if we break this line of support. And this line of support, by the way, is still sitting at around 0.0268 Bitcoin per Solana, because once again, this is Solana valued in Bitcoin. And so in case you're new to this channel, what this actually means is if this chart is bearish, that means Solana is doing worse than Bitcoin. But if this chart is bullish, it means Solana is doing better than Bitcoin. And just measuring out a potential price target for this pattern right here, if we see a break to the downside, we could potentially see around a 12% move to the downside in Solana versus Bitcoin. But on the other hand, if we break out above resistance, ideally breaking out above this previous high right here in the short term, then that would set up a bullish price target, also around a 13 to 14% move to the upside. And so putting that into a real world example, let's just say if you had 1 Bitcoin and we saw a breakout to the upside and you converted that 1 Bitcoin into Solana. And so basically, let's just say if you sold Bitcoin and bought Solana right here, and then if we saw that 14% move to the upside and then sold that Solana back into Bitcoin at this higher level, then what that would mean is you would have turned 1 Bitcoin, and a 14% gain would have meant you've turned that 1 Bitcoin into 1.14 Bitcoin. But on the other hand, if we see a break to the downside here, then essentially selling Solana into Bitcoin while Solana is going to the downside could potentially get you more Solana later on. But once again, nothing that I say is financial advice. I'm just explaining how this can actually make you money when it comes to trading crypto on this chart right here. And once again, you need an exchange to actually trade on, so check out those links down below if you want to get those extra bonuses. And if you want to actually know how to trade crypto, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can use long positions or short positions to make money no matter if the price is bullish or bearish, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.